Hey everyone, this is Chris again with our multifamily value add video series. Today we're going to talk about MEP. I'm here with our operations manager, Alma Chavez, and our cat. What's up, Alma?
Yes, I have my little assistant here.
That's
Doesn't
right.
help much, but keeps me with a good mood.
That's right. Cat calms you down. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
All right. MEP. What's MEP, Alma?
That's mechanical, electrical, and plumbing.
That's right. Yeah.
And well, electrical work and plumbing is pretty obvious, the name, right?
Hmm.
Everybody will know. But
Yep.
to clarify, mechanical is referring to HVAC.
Correct. That's right.
hmm Heating and
So
cooling.
Just to clarify and disclaimer here, we are not licensed electricians. We're not licensed plumbers, not licensed HVAC people. We're a general contracting company and we outsource all that stuff. So we do have subcontractors who are licensed, insured for this type of work. And so we bring them on. What we're going to talk about today is just some lessons learned and not the tactical stuff because, like I said, we're not licensed in these areas. So
hmm We always
if we have
rely on the experts.
Exactly. So
Mhm.
when we have an idea, we run it by the experts, and if they think it's a stupid idea, then we go with whatever they say. But we have a pretty good team of plumbers, electricians, and HVAC people, so we've been able to do
Yes.
some pretty cool stuff, right?
Big projects
Mm-hmm.
that sometimes take longer than you
Mm-hmm.
want because all of this requires licensed
Mm-hmm.
people and they require permits. So,
Correct. Yeah. So we'll talk about permits here in a second, but just a word of caution: don't allow a GC or a handyman say, "Oh, it's just just a pipe or a couple wires. I can take care of it." Don't do that. Call the experts. Let them do it. Just because there's a liability issues, and if you're dealing with a handyman or a GC, their insurance typically does not cover them actually doing the work on this stuff. So make sure you're dealing with licensed professionals. I think we've probably hit that point pretty good so far. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the most important thing to
If you
know
get anything
first.
out of this, it's get professionals with the license and insurance to go
And
along
we're
with it.
talking to investors, right?
That's right.
So there's rental properties and it's
Hmm.
just a risk for your tenants. So
Exactly.
it's
And for
important.
us, just so that how we operate at Elevation, when we have, let's say, a plumber work for us, we require that they give us their plumbing license, their insurance, and also if they were working under if they're not a master plumber, we need to know what master plumber they're working under. So we need that person's information as well. So we have all that documented. If you're working with a GC and they're bringing in plumbers and electricians, make sure they have all that documentation too. So it's very
hmm
important.
hmm hmm
Very important. Okay, so now we touched all the legalities and the important stuff. Let's just talk about some of the stuff that we've been able to do on some of our projects. Where do you want to start first? Electrical, plumbing, HVAC? What are your thoughts?
Why don't we go, if we're talking MEP, let's go with
Hmm.
mechanical first.
All right, we'll go in order. How's that sound? I like it. All right, MEP. Cool. So, I guess a couple of things that I want to hit on that is depending on where your property is. We're in Houston right now. We were operating out of Washington, still operating out of Washington, and each area they have their own regulations, right? So, for example, here in Houston, it's a requirement that landlords provide air conditioning because it gets really hot in the summer. In Washington, air conditioning is not a requirement. However, you do need a heater. So make sure you know what your rules are. Don't be operating in a place like Houston and just provide a heater and no air conditioner because then you'll get yourself in trouble. So make sure you're working with a property manager who knows these rules and regulations and, follow whatever they tell you to do. Keeps you out of trouble.
hmm
Um,
hmm
so what do we want to talk about here today? Let's talk about what we were just talking about just a bit ago regarding, let's just say, actually, let's just stay easier. Let's talk about an existing um, unit that already has all this stuff, um, and we're not adding any heaters or anything. Anything that we can talk about on that regarding heaters. So let's just talk about some of the projects we did. Right, an as is renovation. Sometimes when you're dealing with, if, for example, in Washington, we had a bunch of floorboard heaters, and they're really old. Remember those old ones that are on the floorboard?
Mhm,
Um,
the baseboard
the
heaters, I guess.
baseboard heaters, right? Yep.
Hmm.
Baseboard heaters. They're all rusty. They just look nasty, really bad. Um, I think at sometimes they were okay to paint, but really not the best, right? And they look old. And if you're trying
Yeah,
to
they
do a
do.
refresh on your unit, it would be best, in my opinion, to put in a cadet heater.
Right, and also that consider the energy efficiency of the
Hmm.
equipment, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Putting in a cadet heater, obviously there's some drywall work that needs to be done, but when you're finished with it, you really have a cleaner look on the wall rather than having that baseboard heater. It just looks a lot nicer, in my opinion. But if you can't get across, if you can't fit that into your budget, make sure your baseboard heaters are not full of rust. Um, they look nice. They're the same color as the baseboards, and they go along with the color scheme of the apartment. Really,
Hmm.
I mean, I think that's kind of the only things that we really dealt with, right?
Well, if you're renovating and then they're painting the baseboard heaters, you gotta
Hmm.
make sure or request or, well, yeah, make sure and ask your contractor that
Hmm.
they use heat resistant paint. I
Oh,
guess
that's
that
right.
is important. They need this paint so it doesn't go away really
Hmm.
fast, right?
Yeah, exactly. They won't start bubbling up and getting all start
Hmm.
smelling like paint in there whenever they turn on the heaters.
And right
Um,
now we're doing this project where we're using one of those mini splits, which is kind of easy. It's not ducted, same as
yeah,
baseboards, right? But
yeah,
it's easy, and they're the highest in energy efficiency. That's
yeah,
why, since we're getting this project permitted, the city is requesting. You gotta get these points for everything
mhm,
that is used in an apartment. If you're gonna
right,
use, like, the appliances have to be energy efficient, the water heater, and
right,
also the HVAC. So we're
exactly.
using this type of mini split units,
Hmm.
and that's was requested by the city to get this
Hmm.
project ready.
And that was something where we're just like trying to figure out, okay, how do we use this point system? What do we need to do to make this thing work? Right? It was a bit of a challenge, but when you're dealing with the city and you're permitting everything, you just really you're at the mercy of the city.
Yeah, I mean, you got
Yeah.
to. They have the requirements are clear. You just got to find the equipment that matches what they want, and
Yeah.
everything has this the energy efficient label now.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you're not using a very old water heater, you will get that.
Yeah. Exactly. So let's talk about that. If you're in this case, we're adding a unit, right?
Hmm.
Or if you
Hmm.
let's just say, for example, you don't have you need to add a heater or an AC, any kind of HVAC system to a room. You just can't put one in and plug it into the existing or share a circuit with it, right?
Yeah, exactly. You need to have a new breaker,
Mhm.
so you don't have a disaster once you turn on this. They're energy efficient, but they require energy, and you want to make sure that you don't go above of your capacity
Exactly, or else
regarding
you'll start
electrical.
popping circuits, and then you'll get calls from tenants saying, "Hey, every time I turn on the microwave and the heaters, everything the lights go out." Right?
What do I
So
do?
really,
Do I eat or do I get warm? I don't know.
exactly, right, exactly. So eliminate that problem by properly hooking everything up, and that's going to require an electrician. So HVAC companies either they have an licensed electrician in their company, or they work closely with an electrician who does all their work for them.
And they will tell you in this case, I guess, you can rely on them on choosing the unit that you want to install. they're the experts, and then you show the model to
Hmm.
the city office, and they will. That's enough for them to know
Right.
what's going to be installed. So
Exactly. But if you're just swapping out one for the, like an old one for a new one, you're not going to have to get the city involved. You just take
no,
the
no,
old
no.
one and put it in. Yeah. This is just if you're adding a new unit that is not there already. Right.
Exactly, exactly.
So some apartment complexes do have a central AC system, and they have the ducting and things like that. Um, so we majority of the ones that we have worked on do not have central AC or central air. It's primarily a cadet heater or a mini split type situation. But some of the things that we can recommend is if you're using if it's a central AC system, one, check the dates on the units and put it into your budget as a future project to swap them out, because eventually they're going to go out, especially if you're in Houston out here. They're going to be running those things for several months out of the year, and they're going to get some wear and tear. So you're going to check the dates on those, and put it into a plan of having to swap these things out occasionally. Um,
And the maintenance on the ducting, right? They will need
mhm.
to clean that. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I would recommend cleaning those out probably once a year. Maybe make that part of your tenant turnover. Whenever the tenant moves out, just clean out the ducts, just so you kind of limits the liability of things happening. And that, to go along with that, make sure your property manager is routinely changing out the air filter for your HVAC unit.
mhm, mhm.
So that's something that your property manager should be doing for you. Not really a value add project, but just some tips on maintenance for those central AC units. Just one other thing before we move on is if you're using, this came up because we were walking a property a couple weeks ago, and it was a 4-bedroom unit, central AC, and the investor was talking about splitting the 4-bedroom unit into two separate 2-bedroom units. And ultimately, we decided not to do that because the layout is a bit odd. But one thing you need to keep in mind, if you're going to split a unit in half like that, you're going to have to change the ducting around, which is going to be a little costly, right? It's just not as simple as putting in a wall and then putting in some sinks for a kitchen. You have to change the ducting around. You have to get a new unit for it. It's very complicated. So take all that into consideration before having these bright ideas of splitting up units.
Before making a decision, it's okay to have
Yeah,
the idea, just
exactly. Don't
the
put it in your pro
decision.
forma in your numbers to say, "Oh, we can make a lot more money if we do this." Make sure you know what goes along with a project like that. It's not as easy as it sounds.
Hmm, hmm.
All
Nothing
right,
is.
what's that?
Nothing
Nothing is.
is.
That's right. Nothing is right. Anything else on HVAC or
No, I
mechanical?
think that was it. That was it.
Yeah, I think
For
that's it too.
anything, for more specific questions, they
Hmm.
have to go with the experts, as we started
Exactly.
saying. Hmm.
Exactly. All right. Cool. So let's talk electrical. Um, Again, we're not licensed electricians. Just talk about some of the projects that we've done.
Hmm.
Um, One story that I can tell from a project that we've done where we did a major electrical job is that the property was old and it had knob and tube wiring in it. It was highlighted on the home inspector report. The investor bought it. The insurance premium was pretty high because of the old electrical system. So after he had run the numbers, he decided that it was in his best interest to rewire the property. The property was an old house turned into 6 units. 6 units, right? 5 or 6?
6.
6? Yeah, it was
Hmm.
6. That's right. And so since he had 6 units, instead of having one electrical bill, he split it up into 6 meters. That way, each of the tenant can put the electrical in their own names, and he's not having to pay the bill and you know
For
execute a
everyone,
reg
for
situation
everybody.
for the rent. So that's one thing to take into consideration. It's a couple things. One, his insurance premium went down. Two, the value add is it's brand new wiring, and the tenants are paying the electrical on their own, so the new owner won't have to worry about that,
Hmm, hmm.
right? So that's a value right there. That's like, oh, okay, well, cool. So you can potentially make more money and make a better return on your investment if you invest in something like that. You want to talk about that project a little bit about dealing with the city and how long that took?
Yeah, well, it took a long time. There were some
Mm,
changes because of the trenching that they needed to
yeah.
do. They needed to do more and do it deeper
Yep.
than we anticipated.
Hmm.
And yeah, well, the permitting process took a long time. I
Yeah.
thought you were I forget how the old wiring is called, and now that they're renovating, how did you mention the name
Knob
of
and
the
tube.
wiring? Oh,
Knob and tube.
yes, yes.
Yep.
So yeah, that was the existing electrical wiring,
Hmm. Yeah.
and everything was replaced.
Yeah. They terminated all that and took out some of the old stuff. Um, yeah. Just thinking of some of the details on that one. In some of the
Well,
areas, if you're, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say that it was a challenge
Hmm.
because the units were occupied and the electricians
Yeah.
needed access to the units.
Hmm.
And yeah, it was
Yeah.
also something that will consume time,
It
arranging
does
that
take
you have
time.
to
Hmm.
check with your tenants and make sure they agree. I think we had some issues with one of the tenants that
Yeah.
wouldn't
One of the tenants
allow
will.
anyone in, and
Yeah. It was a bit of a
they
challenge.
they I think there was no access. I remember we caught an access in the hallway, so we didn't
That's
have, because
right.
the access to the
Exactly.
attic was through one of the units,
Hmm.
and
I forgot
then
about
we
that.
didn't want it to do that, and then we had to cut a hole in a hallway, yeah, in the ceiling,
Yeah.
so the
Yeah.
electrician could have access constantly.
Exactly. Yeah. Gosh, I forgot about that. That's right. And that was sort of towards the tail end of the COVID thing where it was still somewhat of an issue. And if a tenant said, oh, I've got COVID, and nobody wanted to be in there, right? So we had to come up with other ways of getting the job done without being, contaminated or whatever. But
Yeah, and also the
mhm,
tenants, maybe some of them, that's why they were reluctant to
mhm,
having people inside their
exactly.
homes,
Yeah, that's a
right?
good point. Hmm.
Mhm. Mhm.
So one thing that we did on that one is, if you're going to rewire, you're going to have to cut open the drywall, rewire everything. For this one, we really didn't do that too much. The investor was open to the idea of just running the conduit along the walls. That way, it wasn't so intrusive. So that's an option too. If it's not, something that is a big deal for the investor or maybe for the neighborhood, you could run the conduit along the walls and still accomplish what you're looking for. Um, Still adds value just because you're taking away the old knob and tube, and now the tenants are paying their own electrical on that. A couple of things that I remember of this one is if you have an electrical drop from the pole and it goes to like your roof, right? That property is going to be grandfathered in. You're not going to have to change that. However, if you're going to do a major job like this, you have to follow the current code. So it was a drop to the ceiling, and now that's why we had a trench. So everything had to go underground. We had to put a new pole in, trench underground. We had to get the city to inspect it, and we came up with a plan, and they changed the plan on us. So be prepared for that. No plan is perfect. It has to, meet the city requirements. But the good thing is, though, if the city inspects it, they put their initials on it, then they're saying, okay, everything's good to go, and you did it right by the city.
Mhm.
So all in all, that took a long time, longer than what we wanted. I know the investor was, I don't want to say impatient because it makes it sound bad, but a little anxious to get it done. But we were a little on the mercy of the city, right? We were ready to get things done. We wanted to get that off of our books, but we can't move faster than what the city will allow us.
Yeah. To be honest,
Hmm.
I was on the client side and I was
Oh,
anxious
me too.
too, and
Believe me, I
yeah,
was
we
too.
were
That
impatient
took a
to.
Yeah, that took way too long, but that's how it goes working with the city sometimes.
Mhm.
Sometimes.
Mhm.
All right. Anything else for electrical?
No, we're
Cool.
done.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
All
No.
right.
Now plumbing.
Let's talk about plumbing. The last one. That's the P in MEP.
Uh-huh.
The plumbing. All right. There's a lot for plumbing that we can talk about. I got a lot of notes here. Um, the top things that come to my mind is what kind of piping do you have? Do you have cast iron pipes? Do you have galvanized pipes? Those are things that over time they're just going to corrode and leak. So that's one thing that you need to keep in mind. If you're redoing a bathroom, our recommendation, we've done this quite a few times, is just redo the piping behind the shower before you put tile or stuff back on. At least you know it's got new pipes. PEX pipe is the thing nowadays. Works a lot better than these old
Hmm. Hmm.
piping from back in the day, and you can feel fairly confident that it's not going to leak on you, right? Um, I do recall one project that we did. It was a cast iron sewer line underneath a building, and we scoped it out. We found that there was a lot of blockage. It kept backing up. I remember, and we kept having to call the plumber to come out to. And this is the property management days. We had to keep having to unclog that sewer line, and it was an old cast iron pipe. And what happened was over time it gets rusty and it has these little spikes popping up. And whenever things go down into the sewer line, they just get hooked on those spikes and they just don't go anywhere. And it clogs it up, and you have to, um, you know, get a jet in there and jet it all out or
That's the
smoke it out.
same place where we did the foundation work, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we found what they call a belly in the sewer line, which means that it just sags at a certain point. So when it sags, you get water that just ponds and pools at the bottom there. And then if it's a cast iron pipe over time, that's just going to rust out, create a hole, and it's going to leak. So what we did is we did something called descaling the pipeline. So we put a bunch of chains and put it through that sewer line, and what that does is just kind of grinds down those spikes that pop up. So it makes it nice and smooth, but that doesn't get rid of all the cracks and all of the little holes. So we put a little vinyl coating inside of that sewer line, which prolongs the life of that sewer line, makes it better, protects it, doesn't leak, things like that. And that's kind of like a quick, legit fix without having to replace the entire sewer line with modern piping.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that helped out quite a bit. But what you want to do is when you do a home inspection, make sure you get your sewer line scoped so you understand the condition of the pipes and understand if you need to do some work on them or not. If there's any issues um, that you have to address, and maybe you can get the seller to cover the cost of all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, can you think of anything else for sewer line type stuff?
Um. No, we covered everything. I was thinking, gosh, I wish because I believe we had a few photos of those pipes
We've got them somewhere for sure.
rusting.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I was thinking, I got distracted thinking about those photos. Would
Yeah.
have been a
We did another
cool.
one here in Houston where the pipe was actually like ceramic, and so towards the sewer line when it went into where it connected to the city line, it was all busted up. So sewage was just coming out, and so we redid that entire sewer line out there.
Hmm.
I
And
can't remember
we
how
had a
long it
little
took.
video because the plumber
Yeah.
goes with the camera on the
Yep.
inside
Exactly. Yeah, the
to
little sewer
find the
scope.
leaks. Hmm. Hmm.
Hmm. I don't think we replaced all. I can't remember. We did a substantial amount of work there, but that didn't take as long as some other jobs that we've done in the past. So that was a pretty easy job, but
Hmm.
certainly necessary too. You don't want sewage leaking all over the place. Speaking of sewage leaking all over the property, let's talk about septic systems. I know. Did you work with the septic at all over? No, that was
I
more on our
didn't.
property management side. Yeah, so
Hmm.
just some things to keep in consideration. We had a 29 unit complex. It was on septic. It was crazy. Like you never heard of it. Large property being on septic like that. But it was an old system. The prior owner did not take care of it, so it kept getting clogged. and we're getting calls all the time for sewage backing up in the units, sewage backing up in the property on the yard and stuff. And we constantly had to go in there and get the plumber to jet it out and clean it out. And it was hard to determine where the problem was coming from. So a few things you need to keep in mind. One, tell your tenants not to flush anything down the toilet, like, baby wipes and things like that.
Mhm.
And then for those who are cooking, any type of grease, do not put it down your drain, because what that does is it just cools off and it clogs the drain, and nothing can go into the septic system. So I remember going there a few times, and I know the guy was jetting out the septic system, and I'm standing next to him thinking it wasn't going to smell very good, but it smelled like a kitchen. I'm like, it smells kind of pleasant.
Everything is oil.
Yeah,
Just
it's
seems
all
like they're
it's all
having some fries here.
yeah, it's like, oh, we're cooking food here. So, yeah, no grease down the pipe. Make sure you make signs for the tenants so they understand what not to put down the drains, and make sure you write it in any language that your community speaks, Spanish, English, whatever it might be.
Hmm. Hmm.
That way, there's no excuse.
Use
All right,
both to make sure, at least English and Spanish.
English and Spanish, yeah. Educational information for the tenants. Um, Yeah, I would also suggest that your property manager make some videos for some content. Just send them out in a weekly newsletter or a monthly newsletter to the tenants via email, and make sure that you're just kind of going out there often and maintaining that septic system. That's an expensive system that could get out of line pretty quickly. And if the city gets involved and they see that you're not taking care of that, you're going to have big issues with the health department. So make sure you're on top of your septic system.
Hmm.
Anything else about septic? I know that's your favorite topic.
I think that a lot of people must have left because of this conversation.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
thank
All
you
right.
to everyone who stayed, and
Mhm.
we're done with the gross things.
Yeah, we're done with the gross stuff. Do you have anything to say on hot water heaters
Well,
in your
they
experience?
um this for this project we're installing a very expensive water heater, very
Mhm.
like energy efficient water heater.
Right.
They get pricey, but there are just regular ones that you can use, and they're energy
Mhm.
efficient.
Yeah.
And I guess just I guess replace the old ones, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Replace the old ones. How long do they last? What's the
Yeah, they could last
10
from
years?
about 9, 10 years. Yeah, I've seen some that are 8 or 9 years old that are rusted at the bottom that I would want to get rid of right away. I know that, you know, there's a lot of properties that we've walked and the owners did not want to change out the hot water heaters, but
Yeah, they work. They work.
they work,
That's
right?
what they say.
Yeah, right. So let's just say it's a hot water heater upstairs, tenant's not home, that hot water busts, and now you got a huge insurance project on your hands. You got a tenant that lives downstairs that's unhappy because there's water coming down, and now they're inconvenienced, and now you got to find them a place to live while you're doing all this work. So make sure you put that into your budget. Be on top of those hot water heaters. You do not want to have water
Water
leaking into
issues.
units. It's not fun, because, especially here in Houston, if you have a hot water heater leak, and you don't take care of it right away, and you're waiting on insurance or whatever, that's going to turn to mold really quick, and you're going to have a bigger problem on your hands. So take that into consideration when you can. Change them out. Make that part of your maintenance plan. Maybe that's my recommendation.
Yes.
And just some other kind of maintenance things for plumbing type stuff is look underneath all the sinks, see if there's any sign of water damage on the cabinets. It's an indication that there's a leak somewhere, and just fix those before they get to be a bigger problem. Toilets, if they're loose or whatever, tighten them down. Do a moisture reading around the toilets just to see if there's any moisture in the ground or in the subfloor. If that's the case, either there's a leak or there's a overflow of the toilet at one time, and the subfloor is still wet from that. That's something you should address before you have a mold issue there as well. Um, yeah, and I think the only other thing is, one thing that we've done is whenever we did a bathroom remodel, we had these old water valves. We changed them
Hmm.
out to more modern water valves. That way, that we know that they weren't going to leak on us, because there are a lot of them either plastic and broke or old and rusted. So look at the water lines, the valves, exchange them out if you can. It's not a huge deal. It's only a huge deal if they malfunction and cause a leak in your unit.
Hmm. We do
And
a
so,
lot of those with the
mhm,
renovations.
exactly,
Hmm.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's plumbing. So we covered HVAC, electrical, plumbing. Like I said, we're not licensed in any of these areas, but we do have some experience working with licensed professionals during our renovations, and just sharing some stories about our experiences renovating apartment complexes. Anything else you want to add there, Alma?
No, I think that covered everything that we needed to. And I really hope this information is very helpful to someone
Yes,
and saves them a lot of money.
exactly. Exactly. All right, cool. So this is video number 6, I believe. Stay tuned. There's more coming. But if you didn't start from number one, start from number one and follow through the whole course, and you'll get a lot of great information. And if you're lost, give us a call. We can help you out, guide you through your process, and we'll see you at the next video.
Great. Thank you, Chris.